In the mountains of western North Carolina, there's a stretch of forest locals refuse to drive through after dark. Truckers turn around. Hikers avoid the trails. And if you ask older residents about the place, most of them will just shake their heads and say the same thing. Those mountains keep secrets. The place they're talking about is a town that officially doesn't exist anymore. Blackridge. According to state records, Blackridge was abandoned sometime in the early 1950s after a mining collapse and economic failure. The population supposedly packed up and left, scattering across nearby counties. But every few years, someone traveling through the Appalachian backroads reports something strange. Lights in the mountains, smoke rising from chimneys, a church bell ringing late at night, and sometimes people who shouldn't be there. The stories might have remained rumors if it weren't for what happened to Tyler Grant. Tyler was a travel vlogger, the kind of guy who drove across the country filming abandoned towns and forgotten places. His channel wasn't huge, but he had a loyal audience that loved exploring strange locations through his camera. 3 years ago, Tyler uploaded a video titled, "Exploring the Lost Appalachian Town That Disappeared in the 1950s. The video started normally. Tyler was driving along a narrow mountain road, trees pressing in so tightly that sunlight barely touched the pavement. "You see this?" he said to the camera, laughing nervously. "This road doesn't show up on GPS. I had to get directions from a guy at a gas station." The camera shifted to the windshield. The road twisted deeper into the forest. No houses, no traffic, no cell signal. After about 20 minutes, Tyler slowed the car. Ahead of him, half hidden behind trees, stood a rusted metal sign. Blackridge, population 312. Someone had scratched out the numbers. Beneath it, barely visible, were older letters carved deep into the metal. "Welcome, visitors." Tyler laughed again, but the sound felt forced. "All right," he said. "Guess we found it." He parked near the sign and stepped out with his camera. The forest was silent. Not quiet in a peaceful way. The kind of silence that makes you aware of your own breathing. Even the wind seemed reluctant to move through the trees. "Okay, that's weird," Tyler muttered. "Usually in the mountains you hear something. Birds, insects, distant water. Here, there was nothing." He followed the cracked road deeper into town. Within minutes, buildings began to appear. Old wooden houses, a general store, a church with a crooked steeple. But something about them felt wrong. They didn't look abandoned. They looked used. Porch chairs were upright. Curtains hung in windows. A bicycle leaned against a fence. Tyler slowly turned the camera around. Guys," he said to his viewers, "this place isn't supposed to be active." Then he saw the smoke. A thin gray column rising from a chimney near the church. Someone was living here. Tyler hesitated. Most explorers would have turned around right there, but curiosity and the promise of viral content pushed him forward. He walked toward the center of town. The deeper he went, the stranger things became. He noticed footprints in the dirt road, fresh ones, large groups of them, but they all seemed to move in the same direction, toward the church. Tyler approached slowly. The front doors were open. Inside, dozens of wooden benches faced a small stage, but the church was empty, except for one thing. In the center of the floor sat a long wooden table, covered in metal plates. Tyler stepped closer. His camera captured everything: knives, forks, bowls, and in the middle of the table, a large iron pot. Steam was still rising from it. Tyler frowned. "Okay, someone's definitely here." He lifted the lid. The camera tilted downward. For several seconds, Tyler said nothing. Then he whispered something that sent chills through everyone who later watched the video. "That's not deer meat." The footage ended abruptly. No explanation, no outro, just a cut to black. The video stayed online for almost 12 hours before Tyler's entire channel disappeared. Every video, every comment, gone. At first, his followers assumed it was some kind of stunt, but then Tyler stopped posting on every social media account he had. His phone went straight to voicemail, And 2 days later, his car was discovered on a mountain road outside a place called Blackridge. The driver's door was open. His camera was missing. There were no signs of a struggle, but investigators found something strange inside the vehicle. On the passenger seat sat a small wooden carving, a symbol, a circle made of bones. Inside the circle were 4 human teeth. At the time, authorities called it a possible local artifact, but older residents in nearby towns recognized it immediately because the symbol had appeared before in stories that dated back more than 100 years. Stories about a town that survived the harshest winters of the Appalachian Mountains in ways outsiders were never meant to discover. Stories about a famine so brutal that the people of Blackridge made a choice that changed the town forever. According to the oldest records, the winter of 1898 was one of the worst the Appalachians had ever seen. Snow buried entire valleys. Hunting animals vanished. Supply wagons stopped arriving. The small mining town of Blackridge slowly began to starve. At first, people rationed what little food they had. Then they began hunting deeper in the mountains. Then they started trapping anything that moved. But nothing was enough. Weeks passed. Children grew weak. Families began dying inside their homes. The town was running out of time. That's when the first outsider arrived. A traveling salesman named Henry Lockwood. He came through Blackridge looking for shelter from the storm. According to a diary later discovered in a nearby county archive, the people of Blackridge welcomed him warmly. They gave him food, a place to sleep, and promised the storm would pass soon. But Henry Lockwood never left the mountains. The diary entry describing what happened next ended mid-sentence, as if the writer had suddenly decided no one should ever read the rest. For decades, the story remained hidden, but the mountains have a way of preserving things, bones, secrets, and sometimes towns that refuse to die. Which brings us to Daniel Carter. Because Daniel wasn't interested in internet rumors, he was interested in finding his brother. Tyler Grant was Daniel's younger brother, and 3 years after Tyler vanished in the mountains of North Carolina, Daniel had finally decided to go looking for him. The police had stopped investigating long ago. The case file simply read, "Missing, presumed lost in wilderness," but Daniel knew his brother. Tyler had explored hundreds of dangerous places, abandoned hospitals, collapsed mines, even restricted military zones. He never disappeared, not like this. So Daniel packed a bag, grabbed the last known coordinates from Tyler's deleted video, and began driving toward the Appalachian Mountains. He reached the area just before sunset. The mountains were peaceful from a distance, rolling green hills fading into blue mist. But the closer Daniel got, the more uneasy he felt. Gas stations were rare, roads narrowed, and when he finally stopped at a small roadside diner to ask for directions, the reaction from the locals told him everything he needed to know. When Daniel mentioned Blackridge, the entire room went silent. An old man at the counter slowly turned toward him. "You looking for trouble?" the man asked. Daniel shook his head. "I'm looking for my brother." The old man studied him for a long moment. Then he sighed. "You won't find him there." Daniel leaned forward. "What do you mean?" The man's voice dropped to a whisper. "Because folks who go into Blackridge don't come back." And then he said something even stranger. "They don't let outsiders leave once the sun goes down." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. Who doesn't? The old man didn't answer. Instead, he pointed toward the mountains outside the diner window, toward a narrow road disappearing into thick forest. "If you're smart," the man said quietly, "you'll turn around right now." Daniel looked at the road, then back at the old man. "My brother went up there," Daniel said, "so I'm going up there too." The old man shook his head slowly. "You don't understand." Daniel stood up. "No," he said, "I think I'm starting to." Because for the first time since Tyler disappeared, Daniel had the feeling that his brother hadn't simply gotten lost. He had found something hidden deep in the Appalachian Mountains. something that had been feeding on outsiders for more than a century, and if the rumors were true, the people of Blackridge were still hungry. Daniel Carter left the diner just as the last light of the sun faded behind the Appalachian ridges. The old man's warning echoed in his head. Folks who go into Blackridge don't come back. Daniel had heard warnings before. Most of the time they were exaggerated stories meant to scare outsiders. But something about the silence in that diner had felt real. No one laughed. No one said the old man was joking. They just stared at Daniel like he had already made a fatal decision. Now he was driving toward the mountains. The road twisted through dense forest, climbing higher and higher into the Appalachian wilderness. His GPS had already lost signal. The phone screen showed nothing but a blank grid, exactly like Tyler's video. Daniel tightened his grip on the steering wheel. Somewhere out there was the town that swallowed his brother, and tonight he was going to find it. The road became narrower the deeper he drove. Branches scraped against the sides of the truck. Fog slowly rolled down the slopes of the mountains, turning the headlights into pale tunnels of light. Then, suddenly,
The truck's headlights caught something ahead. A sign.
Daniel slowed the vehicle. The metal sign was rusted, half leaning to one side, Blackridge Population 312. But someone had scratched deep lines through the numbers. The marks looked fresh, like they had been carved only days ago. Daniel stepped out of the truck. Cold air drifted through the trees. The forest around him was unnaturally quiet. No insects, no birds, not even wind. He remembered Tyler saying the exact same thing in his last video. This place feels wrong. Daniel walked closer to the sign. At the bottom of it, barely visible in the rusted metal, was another message carved into the surface. Welcome, visitors. But below that, someone had added something new. A single word. Dinner. Daniel felt his stomach tighten. He suddenly had the strange feeling that someone knew he was coming. He looked back toward his truck. For a moment he considered leaving, turning around, driving back down the mountain. But then he remembered Tyler's video cutting off in the church. The iron pot. The fear in his brother's voice. Daniel turned back toward the road leading into the trees. "If you're out there, Tyler," he muttered quietly, "I'm finding you." He grabbed his flashlight and started walking. The cracked asphalt road led downhill into the valley. Within minutes, the first buildings appeared. Wooden houses stood on either side of the road, old, weathered, but not abandoned. Some windows glowed faintly with candlelight. Daniel froze. Someone lived here. The town was supposed to be empty, yet smoke drifted from several chimneys. A rocking chair moved slowly on one porch, back and forth, back and forth. Daniel lifted his flashlight. The beam moved across the street. A bicycle leaned against a fence. Laundry hung from a clothesline. Fresh footprints covered the dirt road. He whispered under his breath, "This place never died." Suddenly, a door creaked open somewhere behind him. Daniel spun around. An elderly woman stood on the porch of a nearby house. She watched him without blinking. Her skin looked pale in the dim candlelight. Her eyes seemed strangely reflective. "You're not from around here," she said calmly. Her voice sounded dry, like someone who rarely spoke. Daniel hesitated. "I'm looking for someone." The woman tilted her head slightly. "A visitor?" Daniel nodded. "My brother came through here 3 years ago." For a moment, the woman said nothing. Then slowly, a thin smile spread across her face. "Yes," she said softly, "we remember him." Daniel felt his heart start pounding. "Where is he?" The woman didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked down the street toward the church, a tall wooden building rising above the rest of the town. "He's with the others," she said, "waiting." Daniel followed her gaze. "Waiting for what?" he asked. The woman's smile widened. "For supper." Daniel's chest tightened. Before he could ask another question, the woman quietly stepped back inside her house. The door closed. The street fell silent again. Daniel stood frozen in the road. Something about the way she had said supper made his skin crawl. Then he noticed something else. More doors were opening, one by one, all along the street. Men, women, children. They stepped onto their porches slowly, watching him. Dozens of pale faces stared in silence. No one spoke, no one moved, but every single one of them was looking at Daniel, like he was something they had been waiting for. The church bell suddenly rang. Slang! The sound echoed through the valley. Slang! The people in the street began moving, not toward Daniel, but past him, walking calmly toward the church at the center of town. No one acknowledged him. They simply walked, like a ritual. Daniel's instincts screamed at him to leave, but something stronger pushed him forward. If Tyler was here, the church was where he'd find answers. Daniel followed the crowd. The doors of the church stood open. Inside, rows of wooden benches faced a long table in the center of the room, the exact same table from Tyler's video. Metal plates covered its surface, knives, forks, bowls, and in the middle, the iron pot. Steam slowly curled from beneath the lid. The townspeople filled the benches, dozens of them. They sat quietly facing the table, waiting. Daniel stood near the doorway, heart pounding. Then someone stepped onto the small stage at the front of the church, an older man with a thick gray beard. His posture was strong despite his age. He looked at Daniel and smiled. "A visitor," the man said. The entire church turned to look at him. Daniel swallowed. "I'm looking for my brother," he said. "Tyler Grant." The old man nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "We remember Tyler." Daniel stepped forward. "Where is he?" The man clasped his hands together. "Your brother helped our town survive." Daniel frowned. "What does that mean?" The old man gestured toward the iron pot. "You see, Mr. Carter, Blackridge has endured many hard winters." He paused. "Sometimes the mountains give nothing." Daniel felt cold dread spreading through his body. "And when that happens," the man continued calmly, "we rely on the kindness of travelers." Daniel's voice shook. "What did you do to my brother?" The old man looked genuinely puzzled. "We welcomed him," he said. "We fed him." Then his expression darkened slightly. "And eventually, he fed us." A wave of murmurs spread through the church. Daniel felt the room spinning. "You're insane," he whispered. The old man shook his head. "No." He gestured toward the townspeople. "We survived." The iron pot lid suddenly rattled slightly as steam escaped from the sides. The smell filled the church. Daniel recognized it instantly. Cooked meat. The old man lifted the lid slowly. "Tonight," he said calmly, "the town eats again." Daniel's survival instincts finally kicked in. He turned and ran. The church erupted in chaos behind him. People stood. Footsteps pounded across wooden floors. Daniel sprinted down the street toward his truck. But when he reached the road entrance, his heart dropped. The truck was gone. Someone had moved it. Or worse, Daniel heard footsteps approaching behind him. Dozens of them. The townspeople were coming. He turned and ran into the forest. Branches whipped against his face as he pushed deeper into the dark Appalachian woods. Behind him, lanterns flickered through the trees. Voices whispered to each other. Calm, patient, like hunters tracking wounded prey, Daniel stumbled over a fallen branch and crashed into the dirt. Pain shot through his leg. He tried to stand, but someone grabbed his shoulder. Daniel screamed and swung wildly. The lantern light revealed the old man from the church, standing directly in front of him. The rest of the townspeople slowly emerged from the darkness, surrounding him. The old man knelt beside Daniel. "You shouldn't run," he said gently. "It only makes the meat tough." Daniel struggled, but strong hands held him down. The old man leaned closer. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Your brother understood eventually." Daniel froze. "What?" The old man smiled. "He's still here." Daniel's heart stopped. "Where?" The old man looked toward the church. "Serving the town. Then he said something Daniel would never forget. After all, every part of him helped Blackridge survive. The lantern light flickered across dozens of hungry faces. The church bell began ringing again, and deep in the Appalachian mountains, the town of Blackridge prepared for another meal. Because in Blackridge, outsiders never really left. They simply became part of the town forever.